How many heroes and villains has Cassandra Nova actually killed from Deadpool and Wolverine? Well, today, we tracked them all down. In The Void, we saw Cassandra Nova building her empire on the bones of several iconic Marvel characters who were sent there for some reason or another. And throughout the movie, we get references to various heroes that Cassandra Nova has personally slaughtered, extremely powerful ones. So how many do we know of so far, and how many can we theorize may have followed suit and were killed by Cassandra Nova? So buckle in, as today, we will break down the many kills of Cassandra Nova. Let's begin with the literal largest and most obvious one, which is of course Scott Lang AntMan, whose own corpse was hollowed out to make it the base of her operation. In the film, we know that it was not just Scott's suit, as we can see the skull of Scott Lang within the helmet, so she was able to defeat Ant-Man in his giant man form. It's likely that this was one of her first, or at least her earliest kills, seeing as she built an entire compound around the fallen remains of Scott. This much construction could have taken a considerable amount of time, which is why we believe that Cassandra killed him long ago, and most of the other entries on her list were killed much more recently. It's also stated that she enjoys killing variants of Charles Xavier, particularly due to her own animosity towards her twin brother before she was sent to the Void. Although it is brief, we actually see her riding in Xavier's wheelchair, though we cannot confirm how many variants of Xavier she has killed over the years, just that she seems comfortable doing so. This indicates that she may be a much more powerful telepath than even Charles, since she's presumably competed with several variants of him. This version of a workout is what allowed her to stand up to some of the most powerful mutants and villains in all of the multiverse, including even the Mad Titan Thanos, who is among her confirmed kills. Thanos is never mentioned by name, but we do see Cassandra Nova has claimed his iconic throne for herself, indicating that at one point or another, there was a variant of Thanos somewhere in the Void who may have been a ruler there, given the presence of his throne. But since he is no longer around, we believe that it is unlikely that he surrendered his throne willingly, meaning that Thanos probably clashed with Cassandra Nova over leadership of the Void. We know that Thanos commands his own armada and is very comfortable in a leadership position, which means that more likely than not, he was not eager to take orders from Cassandra Nova. Thanos is not known for being subservient, and if he found himself in the Void, he would most likely attempt to seize control over Cassandra's army. So how exactly would this fight have played out? We can speculate that this version of Thanos had at least 2 Infinity Stones with him because the throne isn't the only artifact that Cassandra has collected. Towards the end, we also learned that Cassandra Nova has collected a sling ring, one that she took from Doctor Strange, but this is not an ordinary sling ring. We can see that it is augmented on both sides with the Reality Stone and the Time Stone respectively, and so this means one of two things. Either the sorcerer that she killed for this ring, whether it's Doctor Strange or another sorcerer of Camartage, had the stones fitted into the side when they got to the Void, or Cassandra Nova did it herself with the stones that she already had available to her. If the stones weren't already in the sling ring, then the likeliest individual who would have had the Infinity Stones on him would have been Thanos, and it's possible that he arrived with 2 of them. Either way, this proves that Cassandra was capable of killing someone while they were wielding up to 2 Infinity Stones, just going to show how much an absolute menace she really was before Deadpool and Logan ever arrived. It's important to talk a little bit more about the sorcerer though, because we can't firmly prove that this was Doctor Strange specifically, but we do know that she killed whoever this was and wore his skin around for 4 days. Since she specifically said she wore his skin, then this means she didn't kill the Ancient One, but the ring could still have belonged to Strange, Mordo, Wong, or any number of different individuals. One individual that we do know by name, however, is Magneto, since Deadpool specifically asks about his helmet and whether or not it can block the effects of Cassandra's power. The specific variant of Magneto, or which universe he is from, is never identified, but it is confirmed that she killed him and melted down his helmet so that nobody could use it against her. In the film, we learn that the objective is to get the helmet onto her, but wearing the helmet doesn't do very much to stop her powers that lie beyond her telepathy. She won't be able to invade someone's mind when they are wearing the helmet, but she can still do much more telekinetically, and evidently, there is only so much Magneto himself could do against Cassandra Nova. Charles's powers are usually limited to telepathic abilities, and he doesn't typically show much in the ways of telekinesis, whereas Cassandra Nova is not reserved. This means that while Magneto has grown used to fighting Xavier, there is a much stronger and more violent version, one who has a variant and that is out there in the void that Magneto was not prepared to face. Someone that could have been fighting variants of Xavier in order to essentially stay in shape. We have to remember that Cassandra Nova is a threat to every reality that she ventures into. She's legitimately one of the most powerful characters that we've seen so far. Magneto, however, is not the only member of the Resistance that the likes of Blade, Elektra, and Gambit mentioned by name. We also know that the Punisher was a part of their ranks at some point, and there is evidence to suggest that it may have been the variant played by Thomas Jane. Cassandra's own team has a myriad of different cameos and characters from across the multiverse, and lurking in the background is the villain simply known as the Russian, who is easily recognizable by his red and white striped shirt. This character is from the original Thomas Jane Punisher film, and it leaves us to wonder if these two were sent there together to the Void. We know that Paradox is in the business of relocating heroes from dying realities, and those who refuse are exiled to the Void, while the rest of their reality is left to die. So it just comes down to a matter of whether or not Frank Castle and the Russian were both approached with this same universe and same option or not. We do know that in the film the Russian did end up dying, so he would have likely been pulled from a nearly identical reality, perhaps before the events of the movie were concluded. This would mean that the events of this film are still intact, and that this is a variant of the same Russian that we saw in the Punisher movie. And although it doesn't outright confirm that Jane's Punisher was banished to the Void, it's an interesting possibility to consider. What we know is that Elektra alludes to the death of Daredevil, and this leaves us to ask the same question about this universe. Simply put, Daredevil was pulled out of a reality with Elektra from the same timeline, or did they meet in the Void after they were each independently relocated there? If they came to the same timeline, this would be Ben Affleck's variant of the 2003 film, but if he is from elsewhere in the multiverse, then this may not necessarily be true. We do know that Wade and X-23 were saved from the same timeline, that being the reality where Logan took place, so it's not crazy to believe that the two of them were also saved at the same time together. This also makes much more sense than the idea that the Punisher and the Russian were saved as a package, since Daredevil and Elektra are not only allies, but two of the most prominent heroes from this reality. They don't exist on a timeline like the MCU that is saturated with heroes, so it stands to reason that they were vitally important to the timeline, and are likely both worth saving. They also mentioned the presence of a Quicksilver variant, and this is probably one of the most interesting inclusions given the ambiguity surrounding the character. His two most notable variants exist parallel to one another on the main Marvel timeline and the Fox timeline, which are the two most dominant realities in the entire multiverse. Whether this is the MCU Quicksilver of Age of Ultron or a Fox iteration is not confirmed, but we do know that both of them can be defeated. In Age of Ultron, Quicksilver was gunned down while trying to save Hawkeye and a young civilian, and in the Fox universe, he was effectively useless after having his leg broken by Apocalypse. Quicksilver is difficult to pin down, and even harder to kill, but for a being powerful enough such as Cassandra Nova, it can be done. This proves that in some way or another, Cassandra Nova was able to catch Quicksilver, whether she did this telepathically or physically. For either version, it seems likelier that she invaded his mind and got him to slow down through mental manipulation first. But regardless of how she was able to do this, she did eventually get the job done and did kill a variant of Quicksilver. Another impressive kill. Finally, this leaves us with the last hero of the Resistance to fall before the final stage, which of course is Johnny Storm. Even though he is reprising his role from the original Fantastic Four films, the changes to his suit seem to indicate that he's not from the same timeline, and that this is a different Johnny. If this is just another variant of Johnny Storm from somewhere in the multiverse, and as far as we know, we haven't been able to find a suit that matches Johnny's new one from this film, or any other known Fantastic Four project for that matter. Earth 838 has a much more futuristic design, and every other Fantastic Four reality that we know of has a different depiction of Johnny Storm, who is not played by Chris Evans. Therefore, this Johnny's reality is currently unknown, but we saw just how easily he was murdered by Cassandra Nova. Rounding out our list is when she murdered Pyro near the end of the movie, ultimately meeting her own demise at the hands of Deadpool and Wolverine and the Time Ripper. But with that said and done, these are some of the most notable kills that we picked up from Cassandra Nova, the most interesting by far being Quicksilver, Magneto, and especially Thanos. The idea that Thanos ruled the Void, or a variant of him did, before Cassandra Nova arrived is extremely interesting, and would make for a fascinating comic spin-off. But anyway friends, did we miss any? Are there any other kills by Cassandra Nova that we missed in this video? And out of everyone, who do you think was the most difficult for her to kill? As always, my friends, smash that subscribe button for more Marvel lore, and I will hopefully see you in another video soon.